I woke up to the sound of a locker slamming, my head throbbing like I'd been hit by a stage light. The world around me was too bright, too loud, too perfect, like I'd stumbled into a glossy teen movie where everyone knew their lines except me. I was standing in a high school hallway, surrounded by kids belting out a choreographed song about seizing the day, and I had no idea how I got here. My name's Eli Carter, or at least it was last I checked. I'm a 17-year-old nobody from a nowhere town in Ohio. Not exactly the star of any story. But this place, it was Eastview High, the kind of school you'd see in a Hollywood blockbuster, complete with polished floors, peppy cheerleaders, and a suspiciously diverse cast of students who all seemed to know each other's names. I pinched myself hard, but the scene didn't fade. This wasn't a dream. I was inside a high school musical, and somehow, I was part of the script. The hallway pulsed with energy as a kid in a basketball jersey spun past me, singing about dreams and destiny. I stumbled back, clutching a backpack I didn't recognize, when a voice cut through the chaos. "You look like you just got dropped into the wrong movie." I turned to see him, Lucas Reed, leaning against a locker, his dark hair falling into his eyes. A leather jacket slung over one shoulder like he didn't care about the world's rules. He wasn't singing. He wasn't dancing. He was just watching me, with a half smile that made my stomach flip in a way I wasn't ready to admit. Lucas was the kind of guy who didn't belong in a place like this. Too quiet, too sharp-edged for the bubblegum perfection of Eastview. I'd later learn he was the younger brother of Caleb Reed, the school's golden boy turned villain, a senior who ruled the halls with a smirk and a fist. But right then, Lucas was just a mystery, his gray eyes locking onto mine like he could see straight through to the part of me that didn't fit here either. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice barely audible over the chorus of students now harmonizing about finding their way. Lucas stepped closer, his gaze never wavering. "Someone who knows this place is a lie," he said. "And I'm betting you do too." Before I could respond, the bell rang, and the hallway cleared out like a stage resetting for the next scene. Lucas was gone, but his words stuck with me, heavy and real in a world that felt anything but. I spent the rest of the day trying to blend in, which wasn't easy when everyone else seemed to know their cues. Classes were a blur of teachers who spoke in inspirational monologues and students who answered in perfect unison. By lunch, I was ready to scream. I slipped outside to the courtyard, hoping for a moment of quiet, but found Lucas instead, sitting on a bench, sketching in a worn notebook. "You're not one of them," he said without looking up. "You don't move like you're part of the show." What's that supposed to mean? I sat beside him, glancing at his sketch, a jagged, beautiful drawing of a bird breaking free from a cage. He didn't answer right away, just kept drawing, his pencil scratching softly. "This place," he said finally, "it's like a script. Everyone plays their part: hero, villain, sidekick. But you're off script. Like me." His eyes met mine again, and I felt that same pull, like a melody I couldn't shake. I wanted to ask more, but a shadow fell over us. Caleb Reed stood there, his Letterman jacket pristine, his smile sharp enough to cut. "Lucas, you're slumming it with the new kid," he said, his voice dripping with charm that didn't reach his eyes. Lucas tensed, his pencil stopping mid-stroke. "Leave him alone, Caleb," he said quietly, but there was steel in his tone. Caleb laughed, a sound that echoed like a villain's cue, and walked away, but not before giving me a look that promised trouble. That night, I lay in a bedroom that wasn't mine, in a house that felt like a set, staring at a ceiling painted with glow-in-the-dark stars. I couldn't stop thinking about Lucas's words, his sketch, the way he seemed to see me when no one else did. I didn't know what this place was or why I was here, but I knew one thing. Lucas Reed was the only real thing in this fake world, and I was already falling for him, even if it meant breaking every rule of the story. The next morning, I was back in the hallway, dodging synchronized dance moves and trying to find Lucas. I caught sight of him near the auditorium, but before I could reach him, the lights dimmed, and the whole school seemed to shift. A spotlight hit me, and suddenly, I was on stage, surrounded by students singing about choosing your path. I froze, my heart pounding. I didn't know the words. I didn't know the steps. But then I saw Lucas in the wings, his expression unreadable, and I realized this wasn't just a musical. It was a test, and I was about to fail spectacularly. The spotlight burned into my skin, and the auditorium's silence was deafening, every eye waiting for me to play my part. I stammered, my voice cracking as I tried to fake my way through the song. But the words wouldn't come. Then Lucas stepped onto the stage, his presence like a crack in the perfect facade, and whispered, "Just follow me." He started to sing, his voice low and raw, not like the polished notes around us. I mimicked him, stumbling through the melody. And somehow, we made it to the end. The crowd cheered, but Lucas grabbed my hand and pulled me off stage before the applause could swallow us. Backstage, in the dim glow of a single bulb, he didn't let go of my hand. "You're not supposed to be here," he said, his voice urgent. "You're not part of their story." His fingers tightened around mine, and I felt my pulse race. Not just from the adrenaline of the stage, but from the way his thumb brushed my knuckles. "Whose story?" I asked, but he shook his head, glancing over his shoulder like he expected Caleb to appear. "Meet me tonight," he said. "The old oak tree by the football field. Midnight." Then he was gone, slipping into the shadows like he'd never been there. The rest of the day was a haze. I went through the motions classes. Lunch. More spontaneous musical numbers, but my mind was on Lucas. Why did he feel so real when everything else felt like a performance? And why did his touch linger on my skin like a song I couldn't stop humming? By the time night fell, I was sneaking out of the house that wasn't mine, my heart pounding as I made my way to the football field. The oak tree stood alone, its branches clawing at the starry sky. Lucas was already there, leaning against the trunk, his face half lit by moonlight. "You came," he said, sounding almost surprised. I nodded, unsure what to say. He stepped closer, and I caught the faint scent of cedar and ink on him. "This place," he said. "It's a trap. A story that keeps playing on a loop. Everyone's got a role: cheerleader, jock, villain. Caleb's the villain. And I'm supposed to be his shadow." His voice cracked, and I saw pain flicker in his eyes. "But you," he continued, "you're not in the script. You're breaking it just by being here." I didn't understand. Not fully, but I felt the weight of his words. "Why me?" I asked. Lucas hesitated, then reached out, his fingers grazing my cheek. "Because you see me," he said softly. No one else does. Before I could process that, headlights flashed across the field. Caleb's voice boomed. Well, isn't this cute? He stepped out of a sleek car, flanked by two of his jock cronies. Lucas stiffened, stepping in front of me. Go back to your script, Caleb, he said, his voice low but fierce. Caleb's laugh was cold. You think you can rewrite the story, little brother? This kid's a glitch, and glitches get erased. He lunged, and I braced for a fight. But Lucas was faster, shoving me behind him. The jocks grabbed Lucas, pinning his arms, and Caleb's fist connected with his jaw. I shouted, rushing forward. But Caleb's glare stopped me cold. Stay out of it, new kid, he snarled. Or you're next. They dragged Lucas away, leaving me alone under the oak tree, my hands shaking with rage and fear. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Lucas's words echoed in my head glitch. Script. Trap. What was this place? And why did I feel like my heart was tied to Lucas's, even after just 2 days? The next morning, I searched for him at school, but he was nowhere. Not in the halls, not in the courtyard, not even in the auditorium where the next musical number was already starting. I felt like I was losing him, losing the only thing that made sense in this twisted world. Then I saw him, at the edge of the parking lot, his lip bruised but his eyes still sharp. I ran to him, ignoring the chorus of students singing about team spirit behind me. Are you okay? I asked, reaching for him. He flinched but didn't pull away. I'm fine, he said, but his voice was hollow. You need to stay away from me, Eli. Caleb's not just a bully. He's part of the story, and he'll do anything to keep it on track. I shook my head, stepping closer. I'm not leaving you, I said, and for the first time, I saw something like hope flicker in his eyes. Hope was dangerous in a place like this, but it was all I had. Lucas and I stood in the parking lot, the morning sun casting long shadows that felt like bars of a cage. We need to figure out what this place is, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. And how to get out. Lucas nodded, but his eyes darted around, like he expected Caleb to appear any second. There's a place, he said quietly. The library. It's different. Meet me there after school. The day dragged on. Each class a surreal performance of synchronized answers and choreographed enthusiasm. I kept my head down, avoiding Caleb's crew, but I could feel their eyes on me, like predators circling. When the final bell rang, I slipped into the library, a quiet oasis in the chaos of Eastview High. Lucas was already there, tucked into a corner with a stack of books that looked older than the school itself. These, he said, pushing one toward me. They're not part of the script. The book was heavy, its pages yellowed, filled with handwritten notes about the loop, a cycle that trapped people in a perfect, predictable story. It's like we're in a play, Lucas explained, his voice low. Everyone's assigned a role, and the story resets every year. Caleb's the villain because he thrives on control. I'm supposed to be his sidekick, but I've been fighting it. His fingers brushed mine as he turned a page, and I felt that same electric pull. Stronger now. What about me? I asked. Lucas hesitated, his eyes searching mine. You're an anomaly, he said, You weren't here last year. You just appeared. And you're messing with the story's rhythm. His voice softened. You're messing with me, too. My heart skipped. But before I could respond, the library doors slammed open. Caleb strode in, his grin all teeth. Found you, he said, his voice a low growl. You're breaking the rules, little brother. Lucas stood, placing himself between me and Caleb. Leave him out of this, he said, his voice steady despite the bruise on his jaw. Caleb laughed, stepping closer. You think you can protect him? The story always wins. He grabbed Lucas's arm. But I didn't think I just acted, shoving Caleb back. His eyes widened, then narrowed. Big mistake. Glitch. He spat. Before I could react, he swung, and pain exploded across my cheek. Lucas shouted, tackling Caleb, and the library erupted into chaos. Books fell. Tables tipped. And I scrambled to my feet, my head ringing. Lucas was holding his own, but Caleb was stronger, his fists relentless. I grabbed a heavy book and swung it, catching Caleb's shoulder. He stumbled, cursing, and Lucas pulled me toward the door. Run, he yelled. We bolted into the hallway, the sound of Caleb's laughter chasing us. We didn't stop until we reached the courtyard, panting and bruised. He's not going to stop, Lucas said, his voice raw. He can't. The story needs him to win. I grabbed his hand, my own shaking. Then we rewrite the story, I said. Lucas looked at me, his eyes wide, like he'd never considered that possibility. For a moment, we just stood there, hands clasped, the world quiet except for the sound of our breathing. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I kept replaying Lucas's words, the feel of his hand in mine, the way he looked at me like I was the only thing keeping him grounded. I didn't know how to rewrite a story that seemed to control everything, but I knew I'd do anything to keep Lucas safe. The next day, I found him in the auditorium, alone, staring at the empty stage. I've been trying to break free for years, he said without turning. But every time, the story pulls me back. Caleb always wins. Not this time, I said, stepping beside him. He looked at me, and for the first time, he smiled a real, unguarded smile that made my chest ache. You really believe that, don't you? He asked. I nodded, and he leaned closer, his breath warm against my cheek. Then let's try, he whispered. And in that moment, with the stage lights dim and the world silent, I knew I was falling for him, hard and fast, no matter what the story had planned. Trying to rewrite a story when you're stuck inside it is like trying to change the ending of a movie while it's still playing. Lucas and I spent the next few days stealing moments between classes, piecing together what we could from the library's cryptic books. Each one hinted at the same thing. The loop was powered by belief. Everyone in Eastview High believed in their role's hero, villain, love interest, so the story kept running. To break it, we had to make people question the script. And that meant taking on Caleb, the one who enforced it. We started small. Lucas knew the school's routines like a director knows a script, and he showed me how to disrupt them. During a pep rally, when the cheerleaders launched into their perfectly synchronized routine, I accidentally tripped into the formation, sending pom-poms flying. The crowd gasped, then laughed, And for a moment, the polished facade cracked. Lucas caught my eye from across the gym, his grin a secret just for me. But Caleb was there too, his eyes narrowing as he watched us. I knew he'd make us pay. That night, Lucas snuck me into the school's theater storage room, a dusty maze of props and costumes that felt like the backstage of the world. "This is where the story hides its secrets," he said, pulling out a box of old scripts. They were all the same variations of the same musical, with roles assigned to every student. My name wasn't in any of them. "You're not supposed to exist," Lucas said, his voice soft but intense. "That's why Caleb's scared of you." I laughed. Nervous. Scared. He's got the whole school in his pocket. Lucas shook his head. "Not you. Not me." He was close now. Close enough that I could see the flecks of green in his gray eyes. My heart was loud enough to drown out the world. And when his hand brushed mine, I didn't pull away. "Eli," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "If we do this, if we try to break the loop, there's no going back." I swallowed, my throat tight. "I'm already too far in," I said, and I meant it in more ways than one. His lips curved, and for a moment, I thought he might kiss me. But then we heard footsteps, and the moment shattered. Caleb's voice echoed through the room. "You two are getting cozy." He stepped out from behind a rack of costumes, his smile all venom. Lucas pushed me behind him, but Caleb was faster, grabbing my arm and twisting it until I winced. "You're a glitch," he hissed. "And glitches don't get happy endings." Lucas lunged, but Caleb's cronies appeared, holding him back. I struggled, but Caleb's grip was iron. "Let's see how the story plays without you," he said, and before I could react, he shoved me into a prop closet and slammed the door. The darkness was suffocating, the air thick with dust. I pounded on the door, shouting, but the sound was muffled, like the story itself was swallowing my voice. I heard Lucas yelling, then a thud, and my heart stopped. What was Caleb doing to him? I clawed at the door, desperation clawing at me, until my fingers found a loose panel. I pried it open, tumbling out into the empty storage room. Lucas was gone. So was Caleb. But on the floor was Lucas's notebook, its pages torn, his bird sketch ripped in half. I ran, my chest burning, searching the school for Lucas. I found him in the courtyard, slumped against the oak tree, blood trickling from his lip. "I'm okay," he said before I could ask, but his eyes were haunted. I knelt beside him, my hands shaking as I touched his face. "We can't keep doing this alone," I said. He nodded, his hand finding mine. "Then we need allies," he said. "People who can see the cracks in the story." The next day, we started looking for others who didn't fit the script. There was Mia, a quiet girl who never joined the musical numbers, and Jay, a nerdy kid who asked too many questions in class. They were hesitant at first, but when we showed them the library's books, their eyes lit up with recognition. I knew something was wrong. Mia whispered. Jay nodded, pushing up his glasses. "It's like we're stuck in a simulation." For the first time, I felt like we had a chance not just to break the loop, but to rewrite it into something real. Something where Lucas and I could be together without fear. Building a rebellion in a world that wants you to sing and dance on cue is harder than it sounds. Mia, and Jay were on board. But convincing them to act was like pulling teeth. Mia kept her head down, scared of Caleb's wrath, while Jay was more interested in analyzing the loop than fighting it. Lucas and I spent hours in the library, whispering plans while the rest of the school spun through its perfect routines. Every glance Lucas gave me, every brush of his hand, made me want to fight harder, not just for freedom, but for us. We decided to strike at the heart of the story, the spring musical, the event that seemed to anchor the loop. If we could disrupt it, maybe we could break the cycle. The plan was simple but risky: sneak into the auditorium during rehearsals, rewrite the script, and get Mia and Jay to perform it. It's not just about changing the words, Lucas said, his eyes bright with determination. It's about making people feel something real. I nodded, my heart swelling. He believed in this, in us, and that was enough. But Caleb was always watching. We were in the cafeteria, plotting over trays of untouched food, when his shadow fell over us. "You're recruiting," he said, his voice low and dangerous. Mia froze, and Jay dropped his fork. Lucas stood, his jaw tight. "Back off, Caleb," he said. Caleb's smile was a blade. "You think you can outsmart the story? It's bigger than you, little brother." He leaned in, his breath hot against my ear. "And you, Glitch, keep pushing, and you'll disappear for good." I wanted to punch him, but Lucas grabbed my arm, pulling me back. Caleb laughed and walked away, but the threat hung heavy. That night, Lucas and I met under the oak tree again, the moonlight casting his face in silver. "He's scared," Lucas said. "He knows you're changing things." I shook my head. "I'm just a kid who woke up in the wrong story." Lucas's eyes softened. "You're more than that," he said, and then he kissed me. It was quick, fierce, like he was afraid the moment would vanish. My heart exploded, every nerve singing. And for a second, the loop didn't exist, just us, under the stars, rewriting our own story. But then headlights flashed, and we broke apart. Caleb's car idling nearby. He didn't get out, just watched, his silhouette a warning. Lucas's hand found mine, squeezing tight. "We keep going," he whispered. I nodded, my lips still tingling from his kiss. The next day, we got to work. Mia hacked the auditorium's sound system, looping a glitchy track that threw off the rehearsal's rhythm. Jay slipped our rewritten script pages into the actors' binders, lines that questioned the story's rules instead of following them. I watched from the wings, my heart pounding, as the cast stumbled through the new words, their voices faltering. The director, a teacher who doubled as the loop's enforcer, shouted for order, but the cracks were spreading. Lucas stood beside me, his shoulder brushing mine. "It's working," he whispered. But then Caleb stormed onto the stage, ripping the script from the lead actress's hands. "Enough," he roared. The auditorium went silent, every eye on him. "This ends now," he said, his gaze locking onto me. "You don't belong here, Glitch." He lunged, but Lucas was faster, tackling him to the ground. The cast gasped. The director froze. And for a moment, the story stopped. We ran, Lucas pulling me through the school's back halls, Mia and Jay trailing behind. We ended up in the library again, barricading the door. He's losing control. Lucas panted, his eyes wild. But he'll fight harder now. Mia nodded, her voice shaking. We need more people. The whole school has to see it. Jay pushed up his glasses. We need proof, something undeniable. I looked at Lucas, his hand still in mine, and knew we were running out of time. But his kiss, his belief in me, burned brighter than my fear. We were rewriting the story, and I'd fight for him until the final curtain. Proof was hard to come by in a world that erased its own flaws. The library became our war room. Stacks of books and crumpled notes littering the table as we hunted for a way to expose the loop. Lucas was relentless, flipping through pages with a focus that made my chest ache. He was fighting for more than just freedom, was fighting for us. For a chance to exist outside the story's grip. I caught him watching me sometimes, his eyes soft, and I wondered if he felt the same pull I did. Like we were two notes in a melody that didn't belong. Jay had an idea, the school's projector system. It's connected to every screen in the building, he said, his voice buzzing with excitement. If we can broadcast something that shows the loop for what it is, people will have to question it. Mia nodded, her fingers flying over her laptop. I can get us in, but we'll need a video, something that hits hard. Lucas looked at me. We need to tell our story, he said. Yours and mine. We spent the night piecing together a video, using grainy footage from the school's security cameras that Mia hacked. It showed the unnatural perfection of Eastview High, the synchronized dances, the scripted lines, the way Caleb's influence silenced anyone who strayed. Lucas narrated, his voice steady but raw, talking about being trapped, about wanting to be free, about finding someone who made him believe in more. I added my part, my voice shaky as I described waking up in a world that wasn't mine, and finding Lucas, the only thing that felt real. The next morning, we were ready. The plan was to hijack the morning announcements, broadcasting our video to every classroom. But Caleb was one step ahead. As we snuck into the AV room, he was waiting, his cronies blocking the exits. You're predictable, he said, his smile cold. You think a little video will change anything? Lucas stepped forward, his fists clenched. It'll show them the truth, he said. Caleb laughed. Truth. This is my story, and you're just props. The fight was brutal. Caleb's cronies grabbed Mia and Jay, while Caleb went for Lucas. I didn't think I just swung, catching Caleb's jaw with a clumsy punch. He staggered, but his eyes burned with rage. You're done. Glitch, he snarled, tackling me to the ground. Pain exploded in my ribs. But Lucas was there, pulling Caleb off me. We scrambled to the control panel, Mia breaking free long enough to hit play. The video blared across the school, Lucas's voice echoing through the halls. Students stopped. Teachers froze. And for a moment, the loop faltered. I saw it in their faces: confusion, doubt, the first cracks of disbelief. But Caleb wasn't done. He ripped the cords from the panel. The screen's going dark. You think you've won. He spat, blood on his lip. The story always resets. He lunged again. But this time, students from the hallway poured in, drawn by the video. They didn't attack, they just watched, their silence louder than any song. Lucas grabbed my hand, pulling me out of the chaos. We ran to the courtyard. our breaths ragged. "It worked," he said, his eyes bright. "They're questioning it." I nodded, my heart pounding. But Caleb's words echoed in my head. The story always resets. We had to keep pushing. Had to make the doubt spread. That night, under the oak tree, Lucas kissed me again. Slower this time. Like he was memorizing me. "Whatever happens," he said, "you're my truth." I held him tight, knowing we were running out of time, but refusing to let go. The next day, the school felt different. Kids whispered in the halls, skipping their cues. The musical numbers were off-key. The dances sloppy. We were winning, but Caleb was still out there, and I knew he'd fight to the end. Lucas and I met in the library, planning our next move, when Mia burst in, her face pale. "He's planning something big," she said. "The musical's opening night. He's going to reset everything." Lucas's hand found mine, and I knew, whatever came next, we'd face it together. Opening night loomed like a storm cloud. The entire school buzzing with anticipation for the musical that would either break the loop or cement it forever. Lucas and I barely slept, spending every moment planning with Mia and Jay. The video had shaken things, but Caleb was rallying his forces, charming students back into their roles with promises of glory and threats of exile. We had to strike at the musical's heart. During the performance, when the loop's power was strongest, our plan was reckless: rewrite the final act, take the stage, and force the audience to see the truth. Mia worked on hacking the lighting system to create a dramatic effect, while Jay dug through the library for anything that could weaken the loop's hold. Lucas and I focused on the script, weaving our story, our love, our fight into the lines. "If we can make them feel it," Lucas said, his pen scratching furiously, "they'll stop believing in the story." His eyes met mine, and I saw fear there, but also hope, and it fueled me. The day of the musical, the school was a pressure cooker. Students rehearsed with manic energy, but some still whispered about the video, their eyes darting to me and Lucas. Caleb was everywhere, his smile a mask, his presence a reminder that he held the reins. During final rehearsals, he cornered me in the costume room. "You're playing a dangerous game. Glitch," he said, his voice low. "You think you can steal my brother and my story." I stood my ground, my heart racing. "It's not your story anymore," I said. He smirked, but there was a flicker of doubt in his eyes. That night, the auditorium was packed, the air thick with expectation. Lucas and I waited in the wings, our rewritten script hidden in my jacket. Mia was at the lighting board, Jay in the audience, ready to signal if things went south. The musical started, a dazzling display of song and dance. Every note perfect, every step in sync. But I could feel the tension, the cracks we'd made. When the second act ended, Lucas grabbed my hand. "Now," he whispered. We slipped onto the stage during a scene change. The lights dim. Mia hit the cues, and the auditorium plunged into a soft, golden glow, like dawn breaking. Lucas started speaking our lines, his voice clear and strong, telling the story of two boys who found each other in a world that tried to keep them apart. I joined him, my voice shaky but growing steadier, talking about waking up in a lie and finding truth in love. The audience was silent, riveted, their belief in the loop wavering. Then Caleb stormed the stage, his face twisted with rage. "Stop this!" he shouted, ripping the script from my hands. The crowd gasped, but Lucas didn't flinch. "Let them choose," he said, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Let them see the truth." Caleb lunged, but the cast, our allies, stepped in, blocking him. Mia cranked the lights, and Jay stood in the audience, shouting, "This isn't real. You don't have to follow the script." The auditorium erupted, students standing, some cheering, some crying, the loop fracturing before our eyes. Caleb fought, but the tide was turning. The cast improvised, picking up our lines, singing about freedom and choice. Lucas grabbed my hand, and we sang together, our voices blending, raw and real. The audience joined in, their voices shaky but growing stronger. A chorus of rebellion. Caleb screamed, but his voice was drowned out, his power slipping. For the first time, I felt the story bending, not to Caleb's will, but to ours. When the lights dimmed, Lucas pulled me close, his forehead against mine. "We did it," he whispered. But I knew it wasn't over. Caleb was still out there, and the loop wasn't broken yet. We left the stage, hand in hand, the audience still singing, their voices echoing into the night. We had one more fight ahead, but for now, we had each other, and that was enough. The musical's aftermath left Eastview high in chaos, but it was a beautiful kind of chaos. Students skipped their cues, teachers stumbled over their lines, and the once perfect routines dissolved into messy, human moments. Lucas and I knew we'd struck a blow, but Caleb was still out there, and the loop wasn't fully broken. We could feel it, like a pulse beneath the school, fighting to pull everyone back into place. We had to end it, for good, and we had to do it fast. We gathered with Mia and Jay in the library, the air thick with urgency. The books hinted at a final step. The loop's heart was tied to a physical place, a stage where the story began. Lucas's eyes lit up. "The old theater," he said. "It's been locked for years, but Caleb's been seen there." Mia nodded, her fingers already on her laptop, pulling up blueprints. "It's under the auditorium," she said. "Hidden." Jay pushed up his glasses. "If we destroy whatever's anchoring the loop, it's over." That night, we broke into the old theater, a forgotten relic beneath the school, its air heavy with dust and secrets. The stage was small, lit by a single, flickering bulb, and in the center was a pedestal with a glowing script, its pages pulsing like a heartbeat. "That's it," Lucas whispered, his hand tight in mine. But as we stepped forward, Caleb appeared, his face pale but his eyes burning. "You can't stop it," he said. "The story needs me." Lucas stepped forward, his voice steady. "It needs you to be the villain, Caleb. But you don't have to be." For a moment, I saw something flicker in Caleb's eyes, pain, maybe regret. But then he lunged, grabbing the script and holding it like a shield. "You'll ruin everything," he shouted. Mia and Jay moved to flank him, but I focused on Lucas, his face set with determination. "We end this together," he said, and I nodded, my heart pounding. The fight was desperate. Caleb was strong, fueled by the loop's power. But we were stronger, driven by something real. Mia tripped him. Jay grabbed the script, and Lucas and I tackled him to the ground. The script fell, its glow fading, and I felt the air shift, like the world was holding its breath. Lucas ripped the pages, and Caleb screamed, a sound that echoed with the loop's dying pulse. The theater shook, dust raining down, and then silence. When the dust settled, Caleb was on his knees, tears streaming down his face. I didn't want to be the villain, he whispered. Lucas knelt beside him, his voice soft. Then don't be. It was the first time I saw them as brothers, not enemies, and it broke my heart in the best way. The loop was gone, its power shattered, and the school above us felt real. Messy, imperfect, but real. We walked out into the dawn, the four of us, bruised but alive. The school was waking up, students moving without scripts, their voices their own. Lucas took my hand, his smile brighter than the sunrise. We did it, he said, and I kissed him, right there in the courtyard, not caring who saw. The world wasn't a musical anymore, but it was ours, and that was enough. Months later, Eastview High was just a school, not a stage. Caleb was trying, slowly, to be something other than the villain. Mia and Jay were our friends, our family, the ones who'd fought beside us. And Lucas, he was my everything. We'd rewritten the story, not just for us, but for everyone, proving that love messy, real, defiant love could break any script. As we sat under the oak tree, his head on my shoulder, I knew we'd found our happy ending, not because the story demanded it, but because we chose it.